So today we're going to dive into the incredible, life-changing message from one of the greatest motivational speakers out there, Les Brown. And his core idea is really simple, but it's so powerful. Your life is a constant battle for territory. I mean, just listen to this. He says, life is a fight for territory. And what he means by that is, it's a constant struggle, right? You're either pushing forward, fighting for what you want, or you're letting what you don't want just take over. There's no middle ground, no neutral zone. Okay, so in this big fight for territory, we all of us, eventually hit a point where it just feels impossible. Les Brown has this perfect analogy for that exact moment. The point where most people just throw in the towel. He calls it the wall. So, picture this. You're running a marathon, right? 26 miles. For a lot of runners, that wall, it slams into them right around the 18th mile. That's the moment when every single muscle is on fire, your lungs are burning, and your brain is just screaming, stop. Just stop. That little voice in your head, it's just on repeat. I can't do it. I just can't do it. But here's the magic. If you can just somehow keep going, if you can force yourself to put one foot in front of the other, just one more step, something amazing happens. You break through that wall. It's like you go on autopilot. You're not even running anymore. You're just gliding. And at that point, you just know you're going to finish. It's not a question anymore. In your mind, it's already done. So that's what happens when you push through. But what if you don't? What if you get stuck in that discomfort? Well, there's this fantastic story that really nails the choice we all have when we're facing pain. Okay, so the story goes, there's a guy walking down the street and he passes this house. And on the porch, he sees this old dog just moaning and groaning, clearly in a lot of pain. So the guy's a little concerned, right? He walks up to the owner, who's just sitting there, chilling in a rocking chair, and he asks him, hey, what's wrong with your dog? The owner just calmly replies, oh, he's lying on a nail. And the man is, totally shocked. He's like, a nail? Well, why doesn't he just get off of it? And the owner looks at him and says, because it's not hurting bad enough for him to move. It's just hurting bad enough for him to complain about it. And boom, that story just perfectly sums up this fundamental choice we all have. We can be what Les Brown calls a volunteer victim, just like that dog, moaning, groaning, complaining about our situation, but never actually doing the work to change it. Or we can be a victor. We can decide to actively engage with the problem and just get off the nail. So what's the difference? What makes someone choose one over the other? The difference maker is your why. That's it. It's that deep, personal, emotional reason that keeps you going when just sheer willpower runs out. It's the fuel that gets you off the now. It's the reason you push through that 18th mile. And this idea isn't just some motivational fluff. Les Brown grounds it in the really profound work of Viktor Frankl. Frankl, as you might know, was a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps. And in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he observed that the people who survived, they had a powerful reason to live. They had a why that was so strong, it allowed them to endure almost anyhow. For Les Brown himself, his why was his mother. Simple as that. It was all about a promise he made to buy her a home. And that promise was so powerful, he literally walked away from a super promising political career the very day he found out she had breast cancer. Think about that. And even when they lost that first home he bought her, his mom didn't focus on the loss. She looked at him and said, we still have each other. And that became his fuel. That was his why. And all of this leads to one of my favorite takeaways from Les. No test, no testimony. I mean, think about it. It's the adversity, the tough times. That's what introduces you to who you really are. These tests aren't just roadblocks. They're the things that build your story, your strength, your testimony. Okay, so you've found your why. That's huge. But how do you actually start to make a change? According to Les Brown, it's not about what you know, it's all about what you believe. It starts with rewriting that story you're constantly telling yourself. And this is such a crucial point. Information by itself, it almost never changes people. Les has a great line for this. He says, if information was enough, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy, right? You can Google anything. Real, lasting transformation, that comes from what he calls a significant emotional event. Something that completely shatters the old negative story you've been believing about yourself. And this is where his own life story is just so powerful. For years, Les Brown's own internal story was defined by a label that was slapped on him back in the 5th grade, Educable Mentally Retarded. Can you imagine?
He was misdiagnosed, put into special ed, kids called him DT for the dumb twin, and for a long, long time, he believed it. That label became his reality. It set the ceiling for what he thought he was capable of. But then, he had that significant emotional event. It came from a high school teacher. The teacher called him up to the board to solve a problem, and Les refused. He said, "I can't, sir. I'm educable mentally retarded." And instead of just letting it go, that teacher looked him right in the eye and said the words that changed everything for him. "Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality." Wow, that one sentence, it just shattered the old story and opened up this whole new world for him.
So, this all brings us to one last really powerful story. It's about a man named Jack Boland, and he taught his final lesson not with what he said, but with how he lived and how he died. So, Jack had terminal cancer. It was bad. His doctors called the whole family in, told them to say their goodbyes. They said he wouldn't make it through the night, that he'd definitely be gone by the end of February. But Jack wakes up the next morning, sees everyone gathered around his bed, and with the little strength he has left, he cracks a joke. He says, "This is embarrassing. I'm not dead yet." And he just held on. Jack Boland didn't die in February. He passed away on March 4th. And in that date, Les Brown and his whole community found this incredible final message. See, it wasn't just a date on the calendar. It was a command, a mandate to keep going, to advance with courage no matter what you're facing, to March 4th. And so that's what this all comes down to. It leaves us with a question for you. When you hit your 18th mile, when life throws you a test that's meant to become your testimony, when everything inside you and around you is screaming for you to quit, what is your story going to be? What will be your message?